Unit, Marshal, unit number. 82, 82, 82.
A 911 call that never should have been made. A sheriff's deputy from Fulton County, Georgia, who never should have been killed. And a suspect, former Black Panther H. Rap Brown, now known as Jamil Al-Amin, who never should have been out on the street.
The shame of the matter is that there's laws on the books that should have had that guy already in jail, and he should have never been able to possess a firearm.
For Marie August, the tears that never stop, the grief too hard to bear, and too many questions left unanswered.
Just want to know why that person killed my brother.
Marie's brother, manager of this Wendy's on Main Street in Flushing, New York, was brutally murdered along with 5 other employees. These 2 suspects arrested, accused of gagging the victims, covering their heads with plastic bags, then herding them into a walk-in refrigerator and shooting them one by one in the head, execution style.
He will be alive. My brother will be alive today if they're still in jail.
The senseless and calculated killings here at Wendy's in New York. The tragic gunning down of a sheriff's deputy in Georgia, both with one common accomplice, a catch-and-release criminal justice system that put dangerous felons back on the street to kill and kill again. In each case, the men charged with these terrible murders were no strangers to the law.
These people that have long rap sheets should be held forever. They should die in there.
In the Wendy's massacre, suspect Craig Goodenow, convicted of a host of crimes dating back to 1989. Robbery, possession of a weapon, and sale of a controlled substance, out on parole.
The breakdown is in the courts. We bring them in, they let them out.
The other suspect, John Taylor, an even more disturbing story. At the time of the shootings, he was being sought on an outstanding warrant for failing to show up in court. Back in June, he was accused of a string of fast food robberies and caught with a gun, but disappeared after a judge released him on $3,500 bail, even though prosecutors urged bond be set at $100,000.
I have no idea how that judge let someone out with that record on that amount of low bail. I mean, I'm shocked.
I think the family should sue the judge. I think if more families sued judges for cases such as this, we'd have less problems on the street.
Governmental conspiracy, man. This is a governmental conspiracy.
Conspiracy or a conscious decision not to prosecute? That's the question in the case of Jamil Al-Amin, once on the FBI's most wanted list, and a rap sheet with felony arrests and gun convictions stretching back over 30 years. 1967, accused of inciting a riot but disappeared before the trial. 1971, sentenced to 5 years in prison for his role in a robbery that ended in a shootout with New York police. Paroled in 1976. But then in 1995, this warrant charging Al-Amin with aggravated assault after shooting a man in his neighborhood. The victim later recanted his story, investigators say because Al-Amin intimidated him. So the assault charges were dropped. But police reports also show when Al-Amin was arrested for that shooting, he was carrying a concealed, unlicensed firearm, a convicted felon with a gun. Then why wasn't he prosecuted? Why was a sheriff's deputy killed?
He was a convicted felon and he was in possession of firearms. He should have been locked up and prosecuted for it. He should not be on the streets.
Federal authorities refusing to press charges. We called President Clinton's chief prosecutor in Atlanta at the time, former U.S. Attorney Ken Alexander, to try to get some answers. His response?
Yeah, actually, I'm just not interested in commenting on it, though. I appreciate your calling and asking.
No comment and no commitment to enforce existing laws. Over and over again, this administration's indifference is costing innocent lives.
You got human beings out here, you got lives that we're trying to protect, but while we're trying to protect them, we're losing our lives, and somebody has to stop and say, look, enough is enough.
I think Bill Clinton should feel guilty about what's going on in this country. If he would have his agencies enforce the laws on the books today, a lot of this wouldn't happen.
For police, it's a legal charade. Over and over, officers risking their lives, making arrests, only to watch hardened criminals set free by politicians who can't be bothered to prosecute.
If it's 30 years to life, then give them 30 years to life. There's people who commit murder in this city in New York and the state of New York, and they're out in 7 years, they're out in 8 years, they're out in 12 years. That's wrong, and they kill again.
A public outcry that goes unheeded. In fact, a study of federal law enforcement conducted at Syracuse University shows that in the first 6 years of the Clinton-Gore era, federal firearm prosecutions were the exception rather than the rule, cut by 44%. Instead, they keep pushing one new anti-gun law after another.
It seems like it's a great cliche that if you don't know how to fight crime, it's a great way to validate it. You know, you just say, we need more gun control.
It's window dressing for politicians. It sounds good sound bites. There's two things that people have to know about criminals. Criminals don't obey the law, that's why they're criminals, and criminals don't buy guns legally.
The bottom line on the streets? Because the Clinton-Gore White House has turned its back on real justice, defenseless citizens are living in fear.
The same thing happened to me. I mean, I didn't get shot, but I got stuck up at my workplace. It was very, very frightening and very scary.
It happens to them, but it could have happened to us too and myself.
Police and citizens who understand, passing new laws with no intention of enforcing them, and denying the law-abiding their rights without curtailing a felon's freedom, is the most cynical and dangerous political game imaginable.
There'd be a lot of women alive today who were involved in domestic disputes that had orders of protections, a piece of paper, that if they had access to a weapon, they would be alive today.
They're looking at the wrong people to give up their guns. You understand? The criminals are not giving up their guns.
When a criminal wants a gun, he's going to get a gun. You think he's going to go register his gun? By no way. He's going to go get guns off the streets.
There's plenty of guns on the streets to buy. Those laws are worthless.
That's why this November, millions of Americans will deliver a verdict of their own, voting for tough prosecution of criminals and for the absolute unaltered right to defend themselves with a firearm guaranteed by the Constitution. There have been too many tears shed, too many innocent lives lost, and all of us asking, how many more times?
I'd say to every mother and father, every store owner, every female victim of domestic abuse, that's one subject, your right to bear arms, that you should definitely take into consideration when you go to the polls in November.